Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me on Twitter at Real Bird Lawyer, bird law expert on Blue Sky. Here with me, as always, my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Witt. On Twitter, IASIC, I-A-S-I-C-K. That's It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom on Blue Sky. What's going on, buddy?
I'm keeping IASIC, by the way. I had wondered if I should go to a Taylor branded handle or not, but you know what? I kind of like having a domain name as my name on Blue Sky, and it's kind of different. And so I'm planting my flag there. That's going to be me at Blue Sky forever.
I love it. I also love the fact that we are coming hot off of a Chiefs win. We are recording this on Saturday afternoon. It is a short week for the Chiefs, which means it is also a short week for us. We got to get this podcast out before the Chiefs play their next game in 4 days on Christmas. So we are just basically treating this as like an emergency podcast. We're not going to do the Chief system. We're not going to do awards. We're just going to get in and talk ball and get out. And I mean, I guess let's start with this. Best win of the season for the Chiefs today over the Texans?
It sure feels like it. Obviously it just happened, so some of the glow is still there. But the Baltimore win was big in the opening season or opening game against the team that they just beat in the AFC Championship, obviously. And that game, the Chiefs looked pretty good in the Baltimore game. That's really the only other one that the Saints was the same night as the Royals in the playoffs, and it was Monday
That
Night
was a lot of
Football,
fun.
and they beat them
And they
by
both won.
13. And they both won, and it was a great night. And so, I mean, vibes-wise, those two are the only ones that are really even in the stratosphere of this game. But I think this was a complete game. Offense didn't turn it over. Defense took it away twice from a really good Texans team. I mean, this team was feisty, and we obviously know a lot about the capabilities of their offense and everything. So I'm super thrilled that the Chiefs came away with an 8-point win here.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I mean, you touched on this, but I think we should start here. I mean, like this felt like, if not the best one of the season, maybe the most complete one of the season. I mean, you
Yeah.
had all three phases working in this game. The offensive line looked better than it has maybe all year, with
Mhm.
Joe Tooney playing his second straight game at left tackle and not going against Myles Garrett this week. The defense, you mentioned it, a couple of takeaways. Trent McDuffie with two straight interceptions, two
He's
straight
lava
games with
hot.
interception. Yeah, after
He's never
not having
gonna,
one for his first, whatever it was, 47 career games, I think it was.
yeah, he's never
And
gonna
then
not
two
pick
in a
a
row.
pick a ball off now. Yeah,
Sure,
he's crazy.
22, two times in a row. And let's see if we can make it 3, 4, 5. Let's see if we can keep it rolling for Trent McDuffie. Obviously, the pass rush looked great in this game. Some very clutch pressures. Spags obviously dialing up the Joshua Williams corner blitz with the game
Mhm.
on the line and
Big.
ending the Texans' last gasp. I mean, and Patrick Mahomes. Let's maybe start there. We'll dive into all this other stuff too. But Patrick Mahomes looked not only completely healthy for somebody that just suffered a high ankle sprain 6 days ago, but he looked really good. I mean,
Yeah.
truth be told, Sunday was one of the worst games we've seen from him this season. Just, I mean, everything felt off. And this game, everything felt like it was on. I mean, he just looked very sharp.
Yeah, he was a lot better than he had any right to be, basically. The high ankle sprain is something we've seen him deal with before. We talked last episode just about kind of, the expectations for him and if anybody can play through this, it'd be him. But I did not expect him to be as mobile as he was. And I mean, obviously the tone setter on the opening drive of the 15-yard
Right.
scramble straight up the middle,
Yeah.
trucking into the end zone, doing his normal. Honestly, it was like a playoff game. It was like a
Right.
playoff game in the atmosphere and the competition, and also in the way that Mahomes rose above his injury. I am so tickled that he was able to just gut it out, man. He's a warrior.
It's really funny because, just thinking back to the podcast that we did 6 days ago on, or I guess not even.
It's hard to
I
know.
mean, it was a
What is
couple of
time?
days on Wednesday, 4 days ago,
Yeah.
talking about the game that was 6 days ago. But we lamented the fact when we were talking about this game and the possibility of Carson Wentz maybe starting before we knew Mahomes' status on Wednesday for sure. Talking about the little action we saw from Carson Wentz and the Chiefs going with, this quick game, and they put the backup quarterback in, and all of a sudden they're dialing up these slants and everything to DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy, and they're letting those guys get open and just let the quarterback hit the back of his drop and get the ball out. And why can't we do that for Patrick Mahomes? Well, our calls were heard. Our prayers were answered because Patrick Mahomes averaged 2.5 seconds to throw in this game. It was his fastest average time throwing a game since week 4 of 2021. So 3
Wow.
years ago. And
3 years and
on,
change, 3 years and
and
almost four.
I mean, right, almost 4 years ago. And on passes that came out under 2.5 seconds, he was 17 of 19 for 155 yards and a touchdown. So,
Mm.
I mean, you love to see it, and obviously the ankle injury plays into that a little bit because you have a quarterback who's a little bit limited mobility wise
Theoretically.
theoretically.
Yeah.
Although obviously Bobby Stroop was firing
Yeah.
off all kinds of, he was taking all kinds of
Oh, I
victory
wouldn't
laps
know.
during this game. And yeah, right. Bobby, if you're listening to this, please unblock Taylor. Friendly
I'll
fire
never do it.
incident several years ago now. And
Totally friendly fire. I was
yeah,
agreeing with
yeah,
Bobby, and he was basically blocking everyone in the thread. I
yeah,
get it, man. I,
it
you know,
happens.
I will use the block button very liberally on X as well. But Bobby, I miss your tweets, bud.
Yeah. Well, I'll just let you know, Taylor, that he's been taking a lot of victory laps
Good,
today, and deservedly,
good.
because Patrick looked great. And it's just a reminder that Sam Monson, formerly of PFF, he's with the 33rd team now, was pointing out, and I think this is an important point for us to remember, is that like there's just not that many quarterbacks that can do what Patrick Mahomes does. That like
No.
be different kinds of quarterback, right? Like one
Yep.
week you are the I'm gonna scramble around and make things happen. One week you tweeted like 3 weeks ago, like, oh, Pat is taking a bunch more sacks, but like his completion percentage is up, his turnover rate is down. Well, then last week we saw him not take a sack, right? Like he's like, all right,
Yep.
well, my goal this game is to not get sacked. And he wasn't very good at the rest of the rest of
The
what
game.
quarterbacking is about, but he didn't
Yeah.
take a sack, even though he was pressured like 30 something times in that game
Uh-huh.
and over 50% of his dropbacks. This week, he's just getting the ball out as quickly as possible and making things happen that way so that he doesn't have to scramble and make things happen. Although he did do that, obviously, on the opening drive and picked up another couple of first downs with his legs. I mean, totally clutch there. But it's just crazy. There's just not that many quarterbacks that can play so many different styles of quarterbacking. And, Patrick Mahomes, it may be a down season for him, but it's crazy that he can just adapt to any situation.
He's really adaptable. That's his big superpower, I think. The ability to do whatever is required in the moment is something that the greats have in them. I mean, that's a game slows down. You are able to see the path to victory. It's like he doesn't need to do anything other than win the game. That's the only thing he needs to do. And whatever it is that's required of him to win the game, he will do. And whether that's be a pocket passer, which he's elite at, whether it's be a scrambler, which he's elite at, whether it's being, a game manager and a quick game guy. I mean, we've seen, as you pointed out, every aspect of quarterbacking at some point from Mahomes, and not just we've seen it at an elite level. We've seen him
Right.
just crush it. And I mean, that's a testament not only to him and his preparation, but obviously the coaching. I think Andy has really done just a great job of preparing him and making sure that the game plan. I think this game plan, was a potential if Mahomes was really hobbled, which he clearly I guess wasn't, but if he was, Andy drew up the right plays for a hobbled Mahomes is quick passes and making sure that we don't have to rely on your scrambling. And then Mahomes just said, "Oh, actually, though, we drew up all these quick passes, but when they run man and when it's open, I can also just go ahead and do the old Mahomes shit." It's so funny. Um, they went 8-0 at home for the first time since guess what year was the last time the Chiefs
Oh,
went 8-0?
I saw a tweet from our friend
Okay,
Randy Gisarely about this. So
2003.
I know that it's 2003, and I also know that the other two times the Chiefs went undefeated at home, because Randy
95,
tweeted this
97.
out, 95 and 97, all of those seasons ended with a first round playoff exit. But you know what? None of
But
those teams have Patrick Mahomes.
correct. They all went 13-3. I think all three of those teams. And yeah, so the playoffs were a little bit different, but that's not
Yeah, I
what's
mean
indicative of this
the
team.
playoffs were different, and they are different now.
They are different now, and it's so comforting to see that this team had a big game. Now, the hopium part of this is that this is the version that they had saved for the playoffs, but they realized what was at stake of a big game coming in on a short week against a team that is in the playoffs already. The Texans had already won the AFC South, and a potential playoff matchup. I mean, this is clearly, if the 1 versus 4, if things go the way that they normally go in the playoffs, like we very well could see the Texans in the divisional round of the playoffs. And
Sure.
and this type of game plan is something that I think the Chiefs have been kind of holding in their back pocket a little bit. I mean, again, I said this is the hopium version of it because it just feels all year like they've been fighting with a hand tied behind their back. And maybe they haven't. Maybe they've been scratching and clawing out every single win. But to me, this is like them finally being like, okay, we have a couple weeks to go until the playoffs. We don't even know if the starters are going to play how much longer because we could clinch any moment now. And so let's go ahead and dust off the old playbook for the playoffs and see what it looks like. And I got to tell you, man, it looks pretty good.
I gotta build on that. I mean, it's so impressive that they were able to come up with this game plan on a short week because we know the Chiefs, obviously, they have a lot of very capable guys in the organization, and you have the head coach who's your play caller and the offensive play designer, but you've got a former head coach in Matt Nagy, who I know is much maligned, but you have a lot of guys on the staff. This has always been the case with Andy Reid, who have been in the league for a long time and really know what they're doing. But you didn't
Yeah.
know. All that to say that there surely was a lot of advanced scouting being done with the Texans, and they knew that they had 3 games in 11 days, and they were going to have to install some of this stuff and have some of this stuff ready to go. But
Good
then
point.
you have Mahomes getting injured late in the game on Sunday, and that kind of throws everything for a loop. And really, you don't know until, I mean, Pat said it wasn't until Wednesday that he knew for sure that he would definitely be able to play. That the first couple of days, Monday, Tuesday, he wasn't sure, with the ankle, how it was going to respond and how good he was going to feel. So all of this is kind of thrown together at the last minute, and you have another game coming up against Pittsburgh, in 4 days, and it's just crazy how adaptable the front office and the coaching staff has been with this team. Let's talk about a guy who made his debut in this game, and made
Mm.
his impact felt. Hollywood Brown making his season debut with the Chiefs. He obviously got hurt on the first play, his first snap, I think it was, in the preseason, and
Yeah.
had a catch, and then had to go out of that game, and then obviously had the botched, or I don't want to call it botched. That implies medical malpractice, but
Right.
but it wasn't
Setback.
it wasn't
Medical
healing properly.
setback.
Setback is probably the more generous term for it, and is finally now 4 days before Christmas, making his season debut. He finished second on the team in targets. He picked up a critical fourth down on one of the touchdown drives. He finishes with 5 receptions for 45 yards. But then you also look at what Xavier Worthy was able to do in this game: 7 receptions for 65 yards on 11 targets. He scored a touchdown in there. It just felt like this was what the offense was supposed to be all
Exactly.
year. And it felt really good.
It did. There's an element of this a bit that's kind of we've gotten robbed this year of
Yeah.
seeing,
Yeah.
I mean, we came into the year, you and I, and everyone who really follows the team, with sky high expectations, not because of necessarily the past performance and all the stuff that the Chiefs have done in the past, which although that does help, but because of the personnel and because of Rashee Rice and because of Hollywood Brown and just the way that we could see and drafting Xavier Worthy and these pieces that we saw theoretically fit really well together. And especially with Mahomes' abilities and timing and obviously everything that he does that's so elite, we really foresaw an offense that could have 2018 or better numbers. I mean, sky was the limit on what this team could have done, and really even through the first couple games. Hollywood being hurt took an element away before the season even started, but we saw it out of Rashee Rice certainly early on that he was eating, he was doing everything that you would want of a star number one receiver to do, and it just looked like moving the ball for the first couple weeks of the year was not going to be an issue for the Chiefs at all.
Right.
And then when they lose him, they struggled for a bit, but they did a great job of landing on their feet, and they did a great job of adapting and changing the offensive play style. And that all goes back to what you were talking about just with the coaching staff and them being veterans and adaptable and all the things that the Chiefs have done. I mean, hell, the front office to be able to bring in the right guys and to be able to sign a couple of the old Chiefs off the street that fit extremely well and got this team back to back to where they could fire again on offense. And now Hollywood comes back. Like you said, it did kind of feel like this, oh, DeAndre Hopkins is out there now, and
Yeah.
Hollywood's out there, and Xavier Worthy's out there, and Travis Kelsey's out there, and Pacheco's behind. I mean, they're back. They've got all full complement of weapons. Whether they have a line that can protect and do all that stuff, they were fine. They're okay. They've had worse lines and won the Super Bowl. So I think you got to feel pretty good about where this team is after 15 games being 14-1.
Yeah, and on offense, Noah Gray went down today, was able to come back in, I think, into the game. I think
Yep,
he was able to come back
he
in.
did.
Xavier Worthy banged up a couple of times and was able to skate by. I unintentionally did the reverse jinx on him. I mean, I was worried that they kept running him out there, and I
Right,
tweeted about that. Like, hey, we don't need to give him the ball every play. He's clearly not 100% out there. And then, of course, he immediately scored like
right.
about 15 seconds after I tweeted that. So,
Nailed it.
I mean, really a strong performance by the offense in this game. And I mean, I think, looking forward to the playoffs, it seems like this is the offensive line they're going to be comfortable with after a good performance in this game. The skill players are in a good place. Let's turn over to the defensive side of the ball, because even though the Texans have struggled and underperformed a little bit on offense this year relative to expectations. I mean, we talked about it on the preview show. CJ Stroud, obviously offensive rookie of the year last year, a season where he threw for 21 touchdowns and 5 picks, I think it was,
Hmm.
over 4,000 yards passing as a rookie. I mean, one of the great rookie seasons of all time. A little bit lackluster this year by their standards, but this is still a really talented team. And boy, for the second week in a row, the Chiefs defense really came to play. And, you brilliantly, I think, described it on our Wednesday show, the turnover situation with the defense, just seeing the ball go through the hoop.
That's
They
right,
saw the
buddy.
ball go through the hoop,
They
and they
did.
got two more turnovers in this game.
They come in bunches, as you pointed out. Clearly, they had to kind of get back to the way that Spags likes to play defense, which does include pressuring the quarterback, taking the ball over. I mean, hell, that's the way everybody likes to play defense, but that's the way that Spags has kind of shown over the last couple of years when the season's gotten long in the tooth and when everybody's tired and all that stuff. That's kind of when this Chiefs defense has smelled blood and made it happen. And Jameis is one thing. CJ Stroud is an entirely different animal. He takes care of the ball. I mean, he's not a guy that goes out there and just willy nilly throws the ball over the yard. And the first one was an overthrow, but Jaden Hicks was right there, to make a play on the ball. And then the second one, brilliant play by Trent McDuffie.
Yeah, great.
Undercut the route. Stroud was under pressure, which is the other thing that we always talk about how much a complementary game the defense is between the defensive line and the secondary. And if you pressure, then your secondary looks a hell of a lot better because those balls aren't coming out with a clean pocket and an easy throw. They're coming out kind of crazy and kind of under duress. And so for McDuffie to obviously get that play, talk about seeing the ball go through the hoop. McDuffie hadn't hit a shot in his whole career until last week, and then he finally hits a shot, and this week he says, "Hey, I guess I can do this," and hits another one. So yeah, really, really nice performance, not only by the takeaways but the pressure. I mean, they did a good job of keeping after CJ Stroud, especially considering how lackluster the pressure has been throughout the whole year. They had 2 sacks, but not only that, they didn't he didn't sit back there. He hit some passes. He had
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
under
He played
pressure.
a great game.
He
Stroud
was
did.
really good. Third downs, they converted on a bunch of long third down conversions, which is kind of Stroud's superpower. If you've ever watched the Texans, it's kind of do a couple dumb plays on first and second down,
Yeah.
and then
They're
let
always
CJ
in third and
Stroud
long.
go be hero, and he usually does a pretty good job of that. They were 7 of 13. The Chiefs were 7 of 13 on third down. Really, really good barometer for where the Chiefs are at, and going into the playoffs. If they had come out here and beaten a non-playoff team like this by 8 or whatever, yeah, I think a lot of people would kind of be sitting here going, "All right, that's fine," but that was the Browns or that was whoever. Like, let's see what happens when it's an actual. But like, we could very well see this in 3 or 4 weeks, this exact game. So I feel great about how it ended up.
And I mean, first of all, I mean, it was an 8-point win, and the Chiefs ended the game, the offense ended the game with the ball, and
Yeah,
with
right.
the ability to score again. So
And they
by
were
the
down in the red
20
zone.
exactly by the 2024 Chiefs standards, this was a dominant
Blowout.
this was a
Yeah,
dominant win by
exactly.
by the Chiefs in this game. Let's
I was
spin.
wondering real quick if the one score record that the Chiefs
Oh
have
yes.
of consecutive games, does that count eight? I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know. I
I
think
mean,
it probably
is eight
should. I
one
mean,
score? It's kind of
technically,
technically
well,
two
sure, because you have to
scores.
get. Well, I mean,
But
is
I
an
guess you
extra
have
point a
to hit an
score?
extra
Right?
point.
Yeah. Right.
No, yeah,
Exactly.
you're right.
Yeah.
And the Texans missed an extra point. If they had
And
hit
they did.
their
Right.
extra point,
Exactly.
this was a 7 point game. So
Right.
I think
Exactly.
they'll probably end up counting this in that record, but I wasn't positive and I hadn't seen anybody tweet about it.
Let's spin this forward a little bit and talk about the game that's coming up in 4 days on Christmas against the Steelers. The big news for this game, injury wise, is that Chris Jones left this game late with a calf strain, and Jawan Taylor left this game late with a knee sprain. Neither of them are. I mean, Andy Reid was asked about it after the game and said it's too early to tell whether either of them are going to be able to play. Chris Jones, I mean, for a second there, looked like a really scary injury, and then he was able to get up
Yeah.
and walk off under his own power. It doesn't sound like either of these are going to be, season ending injuries, God forbid, or that these really are going to pose any kind of serious problem for the playoffs. But you do have another game coming up on Wednesday against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and they're playing against the Ravens right now as we're recording this, and currently are losing the game because Russell Wilson was a bozo and got the ball knocked out as he
He
was
got
going in for a
smoked on that
touchdown.
one.
He did get smoked. But I guess the upshot of this is you only have to win one now at this
Mm-hmm.
point, and you got the bye. Or if you get lucky and the Bills lose a game, one of the next three, you only need one win or one Bills loss over the next 5 games combined between those two teams. The odds of that happening are real, real good.
They are. And, the best outcome of all, of any time to get that game, it's this Sunday when the Bills play. Because if the Bills happen to be Bozo Bills for the first time all year, which they haven't been, they've been extremely good. But if they happen to drop a game to the hapless Patriots, then you're clinched and you don't need to play anybody on Christmas. And you can sit pat and you can sit everybody, Chris and the whole gang, and I know Netflix wouldn't like that, and I know that's not what Roger Goodell is planning, but that's the best case scenario for this game coming up on Wednesday is that it literally does not matter. Now, even if it does matter, even if the Bills win, they keep the game and a half advantage for the Chiefs going into Wednesday. I think there's a decent argument to be made to still sit everybody except for, I mean, I think Pat will play, but I think there's no reason to me to rush Chris Jones, Jawan Taylor, anybody that's feeling a little under the weather at all into the Steelers game. I don't know how I'm sure Andy's going to treat it differently, but I just feel like between the Steelers and the Broncos, the Chiefs are going to get one of those, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. And especially knowing that you know, this was a little bit of a gauntlet. I mean, like we have to
Yeah,
acknowledge it, and
no kidding.
especially, coming off of the game on Sunday when Pat's health was much more uncertain than it is now. eh, Three playoff teams in a row. The Broncos technically haven't clinched, but they'd have to really blow it to miss the playoffs, which,
Yeah,
I mean,
they
could be
could.
could be cool, could be cool.
Uh-huh.
The Broncos would really have to blow it to miss the playoffs, but I mean, you're talking about two teams that have already clinched playoff spots, and the
Potential
Steelers,
division winners
exactly,
in, I mean,
potential
definitely
division
one
winners,
by the
and one,
Texans
yeah,
and
one actual division winner.
yeah.
Three of those in a row, while the Bills are playing Patriots twice and the Jets once, teams that were eliminated from playoff contention literally like over a month ago.
Yeah.
So this was a gauntlet, and to get this win today and get yourself into a position where you only need one more win or a Bills loss to clinch that first round bye. I mean, this is as good as I have felt about the Chiefs since week one, probably.
It's almost got to be. I mean, there have been, the other things that have been thrown the Chiefs' way despite them winning has been the injuries. And at this point, I don't know if it's just that I'm steeled to it because it's happened so many times, but like I don't know, the Chris Jones and Jawan Taylor thing, if this were week 1 or week 2, I might be a little bit more, antsy about it, but like whatever, man. It's week 15 or 16, everybody's got nicks and bruises and stuff, and I just feel that if this team that they put out on the field today is the one that starts the playoffs in a couple weeks,
Mm.
like good
Mm-hmm.
luck, NFL. I feel pretty good
Yeah.
about that. I feel
Yeah.
like I would rather be the Chiefs than, I think maybe all playoff teams except for I really like what Buffalo's doing a lot. I really think that's going to be a hard game for the Chiefs to win. But at the same time, I mean, it's the playoffs. You shouldn't have an easy path. They've never had one in the past, and they certainly
Right.
won't have one moving forward. And let's go. Like the Hollywood, I think it's all Hollywood to me. That made the offense look so much more dynamic and so much more.
Yep.
And Pacheco, obviously, his return has been welcome as well. But just to be able to go out there and trust everybody. How many people can Pat throw to where you're like, damn, I don't like when he targets that player right now? Like,
Yeah, not very many,
not
which
very
is
many.
crazy.
It's
Which is
pretty good.
crazy.
It's a pretty good situation.
It is a good situation. It's such a good situation that I tweeted out the meme during the game today, the thank you for changing my life meme about DeAndre Hopkins, who had 4 catches for 37 yards in this game, and they were all just great catches. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
he's such a pro.
he had the little stutter stop on the sidelines and the little toe drag
Mhm,
there on the sidelines to pick
mhm.
up that first down late. That just was there's nobody the Chiefs have not had a guy like that ever. I mean,
No.
Travis Kelsey maybe is the middle of the field version of that, but like a guy on the outside who's lining up outside the numbers and making that catch on the sideline. The Chiefs have probably never had that guy with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. And,
Right.
I mean, it's crazy because, we're not going to see any of these guys produce outrageous numbers, in part because, I mean,
That's
DeAndre
not what the Chiefs
Hopkins
do anymore.
and Hollywood Brown haven't been with the team,
Yeah.
that long, but like, the overall product is just getting to be, I mean, you said it, like all these guys are good, viable targets for Patrick to throw to. And, if DeAndre Hopkins is going to come up with, 4 catches for 40 yards, but it's going to be, 4 clutch first downs or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
That
I have
plays.
been saying it's funny because like I've been saying at various points since we got DeAndre Hopkins, like why wouldn't you just throw it to him every time?
Correct.
Because he seems like he's always open. If he's not always open, he at least can make contested catches and he never drops the ball,
And
right?
he's
Like
been
he's
drawing
had
flags. He's been
exactly.
drawing a lot of flags.
He's been drawing a ton of flags, especially when you get him going down the field. I mean, like the Chiefs, they didn't draw any this week, but last week they got a DPI call way down the
He got a
field, which
big
they
third down
almost never
hold
do.
in this game,
Exactly.
which, not quite a DPI, but basically the same thing. I mean,
Sure.
automatic
And
first down. And
the
yeah.
fact of the matter is, like maybe the individual numbers for those guys aren't going to be overwhelming, but that's only because all those guys are good, viable players for Patrick to throw to. And,
Yes.
if the offensive line is just in a spot now where it's average, I mean, the tackles, because obviously the interior of the offensive line has been great. But if Joe Tooney is out there as an average left tackle and, assuming Juwan Taylor can make his way back for the playoffs and you get average tackle play out of those two guys, I mean, I really think this was the vision for the offense all along. And sure, you don't have Rashee Rice, but you have DeAndre Hopkins, and he may not be as explosive as Rashee Rice. He may not be doing the exact same things. Hell, you still got Juju Smith-Schuster, who we
Hell
talked
yeah.
about on Sunday. Who he has the Chiefs' highest single game yardage total this season. He had that crazy game early on in the year, and that player is still in there somewhere. You just have a great bunch of talent that really feels like I don't know. I don't. This might be crazy to say, but like with the way that Xavier Worthy has looked over the last couple of weeks, and the way that DeAndre Hopkins
He's
looks,
looked
and
a
the way
lot
that
better.
Hollywood looks today, this feels like it might be like the most talented bunch of skill players the Chiefs have had with Pat, like maybe ever. I mean, maybe not. 2018 when they had Sammy
Right.
and prime Tyreek and
Right.
prime Kelsey, that was pretty good. But like they didn't, and they had Kareem Hunt. I mean that
Yeah.
was
They were good.
those
They were good. I don't know
those
if they went as
those were the
deep
heady
as this
days.
team.
But
Like this team is more about they have a higher floor on 5 or 6 guys than the 18 team did. I think the
yeah,
18 team clearly, especially with Tyreek and a much sprier Kelsey, had a higher ceiling. But just the confidence to put everybody out there and say, if I need somebody to go make a play, and let's say they double cover Kelsey and they pull DeAndre Hopkins to the ground right when the play starts or whatever. They take those two guys out. Like I'm pretty good with going to the other guys. I'm pretty good with targeting, whether that is Hollywood now or Juju or I mean it's a big relief to have spread the wealth of talent, and that's a tribute to for sure the guys, but also Brett Veach. I mean, to bounce back after you lose two big time, top of the line, wide receiver one, wide receiver two, running back one within the first 4 games of the year. Like
Mhm.
that kills most team seasons, and rightfully so. It should kill most team seasons. That's an insane amount of depth to lose right off the bat. But between the Juju and Kareem signings and the trade for Hollywood, I mean, the trade for Hopkins, and then now you get Hollywood. You didn't actually lose him for the whole year. You now get to reintegrate him with a couple
Mhm.
weeks to go, and then the playoffs start. This team was always aiming for the playoffs, always since the first day of the training camp opened. It was about the three-peat, and so. Yeah, we didn't have Hollywood throughout the whole year, but guess what? They went 13-1 without him. Things were okay, and now he gets to walk back into this team and Xavier Worthy, let's talk about him for a second. He has taken a big step forward. He still has some issues with his feet and the sidelines. He's had that the last couple weeks, and I think that's maybe just something that he'll struggle with for the early part of his career. But the trust in him for Mahomes to target him on big plays and on not just a straight line go route where we're going to try and take the top off, but he does some of the intermediate stuff, some runs and jet sweep type of things that are important in a Chiefs offense. We've seen those plays be important for years now. I'm really pleased with the development of basically everyone on the offensive skills side. I think they're all playing better to a man, except for Travis Kelsey, than I expected.
Yeah, it's too bad. Speaking of the tight ends, that Jared Wiley suffered that season-ending injury
No kidding.
because imagine where our friend Charles Goldman said he'd heard Travis Kelsey who about Jared
Yeah.
Wiley in training camp, and it's too bad that we didn't get to see his development arc. But yeah, this has been a really exciting development, a really fun game for the Chiefs, and I'll close this out with this: the Chiefs have won 20 of their last 21 games going back to
That's
last
good.
season. So all they have to do now is win one of their next two. They have the number one seed in the AFC, a first round bye, and a guaranteed appearance in the divisional round. They win one playoff game. They're back in the AFC championship game for the seventh year in a row. They win two playoff games. They're in the Super Bowl with a chance to repeat. It's always sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. We'll see you guys after Christmas. Have a good one.